Coming to you straight from the Rio Grande and beyond. Broadcasting to the four corners of the globe. So grab your seat, your coffee, or your sundowner.
Okay, everybody, here we go.
On point, as always. This is Gloves Off. Gloves Off.
Back at you in Gloves Off. I'm Professor Buitrón. I have a great guest, a young man that threw in his name in the hat, and he's going to run on the Republican side for Justice of the Peace in Webb County. How are we doing today, Brian? You doing good?
We're doing great. We're doing great, sir. Thank you for having me on, and thank you for giving me the time to be able to express my ideas and why I'm choosing to take on this challenge.
And I'm glad that people are stepping up and putting their name in there. It shows that we still have a good process of elections going on. And we have people that are how can I say, concerned and basically love the community, okay? But I'm going to ask you a question. Why would you run? Why would you run? Why would Brian Martinez say, you know what, I'm going to throw my name in? What's going on?
Okay, let me tell you why. I'm running because I have the capabilities of being able to express, the ideas that a lot of us are feeling right now. We are dissatisfied with the current political structure, not just locally, but we can look at all the angles. But in terms of just speaking for the population of Laredo, I see a lot of dissatisfaction, and I see a lot of ideas that are being promulgated in the city that don't necessarily reflect the opinions of the local citizens of Laredo. Now, I have been involved in politics for most of my adult life, and I've heard that everyone who meets me, family, friends, they told me, Brian, you have such a great ability to speak to people. You should run. And I always thought, well, yeah, that sounds great and all, but I never really saw myself as a person who could run. But fast forward to now, Mr. Buitrón, I think that right now I'm at the point in my life where I've got my career in order, my family life is in order, my health is in order, and right now I'm willing to undertake this responsibility of public service so that I can help to be an effectual, help the wheel of change in our community.
Absolutely. Let me ask you a question. When people look at JPs, they look at JPs as people that sit back there and think about everything, kind of like King Solomon, doing the wise decisions out there. And when you see that, and it is true, there's a lot of angles in there. Number one, I know that you're an educator. Yes. And one of the angles is truancy. How would you approach truancy when truancy comes from many different sorts?
Right. Well, let me backtrack a little bit, just so that you know how I have helped truant students in the past. So right after I graduated from high school, I actually chose to become a unpaid paralegal. Okay, so I actually had an internship with TRLA, which is Texas Rio Grande Legal Aid, and I chose to work there for free to obtain experience and to be able to find out really what is going on with our youth. Okay, so I saw many instances where kids were being expelled from school for minor reasons sometimes. And I saw a lot of our youth becoming prey to the system. I saw them go through the system would chew them up, and it would throw them out with records in which it would effectively destroy their futures. And I saw that, and I said, you know what, this isn't right. Everybody makes mistakes. When people are young, they are not mature enough to conceptualize the magnitude of accidents or mistakes, which many of us, I'm sure we all know somebody who made a stupid decision when they were young. But I don't think that people need to have their lives destroyed and their futures destroyed. And that is why I chose to become a teacher, because I wanted to help save, or I wanted to help mold these students, these upcoming young students going into these professions nowadays, And I was seeing too many of them become prey to the system. And I said, you know what? No, I have the tools to be able to help some of them. And that's exactly why I chose to become an educator. I saw too many of these truant cases, and I decided that I couldn't let it happen. So when I joined TRLA, I said I work for free. I took on many of these cases of students being thrown out, Chenta Step Academy, Chenta Lara. And I said, you know what? I advocated for a lot of these students, and I knew that there was a lot of good and a lot of these students that were being chewed up and spit out by the system. And that is where I stand on truancy. I am here not to destroy their futures, but to help defend and to help put them on a path where they can learn from their mistake, yes, atone, make things right with society, but then move on and not have them be victims of the system.
Absolutely. That's what happens. Let's say, for example, you have a kid that's being bullied at the school. He doesn't want to go to school for whatever reason. Gets to school late, gets one tardy. After so many tardies, becomes an absent. After so many absences, well, guess what? Now the truant officer's there. And nobody really wants to address the problem of bullying, which was the issue that was going on, why this kid would want to miss school or want to get there late or what have you.
Right.
And how would you judge? Would you research what's going on with each student, or would you just say, this happened here, the truant officer brought me this here, and you've missed so many classes, and guess what? Now your parents have to pay this fine. How would you look at it?
Well, I would look at it from both sides. Okay, so I'm an educator, and my field of specialty in education is special education. So I work with a lot of the students that are, some of them are born with learning disabilities, with autism, with other things that impair the cognitive function of their brain. Now, obviously, not all people have the same capabilities and the same options. So you can't just do a cookie cutter solution to all of these cases of students. We have to go in and we have to investigate and find out what is going on in these students' lives. Why are we just trying to label them as, oh, well, he's bullied, or, oh, he's this, or he's that? Well, it's easy to put them in a box and try to classify them for the means of being able to categorize and try to figure out what these kids are dealing with. But it's much harder to sit down and have a one-on-one with these students and find out exactly what is going on. Well, you're being bullied. Well, who is making this? Who is subjecting you to this kind of, it's psychological torture. I mean, it really is. We have right now in our country, we have an excess of suicide attempts. I know in the district that I work at, we have students who have had multiple, not one, not twice, multiple attempts to suicide, all because of bullying. We've had cases, and we've heard about, for example, the law that Ted Cruz put out not too many years ago, where it's a cyberbullying law. And if you're cyberbullying a student online, you are going to be held accountable. I don't know why we can't do more to promulgate laws like that in person. Like, why? I understand that we need to stand up for these kids online, but we also need to stand up with them in person. I don't understand why more can't be done so that these kids can feel safe going to school. I know that I see it so many times, Professor. These kids, they'll just say, well, I asked them, well, why aren't you reporting this, that you're having this done to you? Well, the teacher doesn't care. They don't care. They just tell me to sit down. I see too much of that, Professor, and it honestly breaks my heart, because if one of my students has a problem, I handle that problem as if I was the parent of the student. Why? Because I am that, and I am a person who invests myself to that extent in these students' lives. To me, they're not just another number. To me, I'm there because God put me there to be the guy that person at that point needs. And I try to be the voice. I try to advocate, but I'm only one person, Professor. I think this fundamental problem that we have of bullying, truancy, it can't just be one box where if you missed and we don't care why, but we're going to kick you out and we're going to send your family to court. That's wrong. That's wrong. We need to be more open about what situations, what is the family situation, what is the financial situation. I think we just try to categorize these students just to rush them out of the system, and most of them end up either homeless, they end up suspended from school, or in jail.
Or all three in one form or fashion.
Or all three. Yeah, we do see that.
In one form or fashion. We have a problem in those cases, and with a problem with that's especially here in Laredo, here in Webb County, we do have, because our poverty level is pretty bad, and we have to address our kids, and that's something that I've always said. Let's take care of our own backyard first. Webb County's our backyard. Laredo's our backyard. Before we can start going out and start looking elsewhere, and that's what that's what I believe in protecting our community. Or else I wouldn't be interviewing you or others. It's to inform the lesser informed of who's out there.
Right.
And we need to do that. If we have some type of platform that we can help others see, then we make it obvious for them to see it. Right. And that's my belief. On the JP level, what do you think will be your toughest? How can I put it? The toughest structure that you will see. Would you see more like when families are being evicted because they don't have jobs, because they've lost their jobs, because they were forced out not to work, because of the situations that are occurring nowadays? How would you look at that? How would you look at family that all of a sudden lost their job and now they're being evicted?
Well, I mean, unfortunately, it happens far too often, as you know. Families kicked out, eviction notices going into their mail, and they're being told that they need to move out. They have unpaid the rent. Everybody goes through hardship. Okay, I don't think many of us can say that we're immune to hardship. We understand that. We're not here to rule as a mindless judge, to just exercise our power without any regard to the human standing before us. And I think that is what should be thought of when we are going to consider evicting these people. There has to be a process, and there is a process, as you know. There's formal process there. You filed for the writ of eviction, and we have a whole process. But I think that more has to be done to look into how can we still keep this system where we can legally have somebody evicted, but not rush to that decision, number one. And number two, how can we make it so that that family has had every option available to them that they could that they could take advantage of before we're kicking them out into the street? I think that we need to look at not treating these not treating renters as just indispensable people, but rather we need to be a little bit more compassionate. I think that ever since the pandemic started, we saw retail jobs close. We saw restaurant jobs close. We saw many kinds of jobs close. And a lot of the studies that came out at the time said that many of those jobs weren't coming back. Well, we did see a lot of jobs come back, but we also saw come with it is the inflation, right? So now you're having families who live on minimal means have a harder time to get by. And I think that the inflation and the basic price of commodities and the increase of those commodities needs to be taken into account when we look at an overall picture of, hey, we're tossing these X amount of people onto the street, assuming that they have the same income and the same opportunities as everybody else, which we all know that is false. Everybody deals with everybody's dealt a different hand in life. So, I think that I would not be a JP that would mindlessly and authoritatively exercise that right that I would have to evict them. No, sir. I am going to listen, consider, exercise my right to help these people. Okay, that is what I'm here for. This is a public service. I am here for the service of the public. I would not be here if I was just thinking of myself, sir. So I think that that is the mindset that I would go into this JP position with. I'm here to help, not hurt, and I'm here to listen, not shut out. Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. How do you see the campaigns coming of age, and how do you see your decision coming in? How has your inner circle and those around you, how do they feel?
Well, that's a good question. Initially, they were puzzled, but now that they see kind of the chips falling into place, they see that I actually have a chance, and I from the start believed that. But with every passing day, Professor, I do see my options to be successful in the race grow little by little. I am becoming more knowledgeable with what it is that we need as a city. I've been living in Laredo most of my life, and I've seen the city change. I'm sure you've seen it. Many of us have seen it. We saw a city that was on the as one of the fastest growing cities in the country, and number one and number two. Remember, only number two to Las Vegas, and then we have since fallen from that trajectory of growth. Well, what happened? Well, we stopped bringing jobs. We stopped innovating. We stopped bringing in factories and industries that benefited not just a few, but the majority. What we do have a lot of is import-export. But guess what? The only one getting paid enough to have their own house and live comfortably is the managers of those warehouses. Everybody else lives in minimum wage. And we're not in the same world that we lived in before the pandemic. And I think that it's just not the same world. And to assume that it's the same world, I think we're doing a disservice to our citizens.
You're absolutely correct. Laredo was the second fastest growing city. All of a sudden, it dropped off the map. I don't even think we're in the top 50. And
that's what I'm talking about.
And I don't even know if I'm just putting out there. I'll be surprised if it is in the top 50. A lot of things occurred in Laredo that were stagnant. A lot of the people in the directors' positions in the city, and I don't want to go off on a tangent, have never been changed. The city really needs a cleanup. The county's doing some good stuff. The county, I believe, is up there is holding the fort together, holding the line. And people might make fun of them for having a new fairgrounds and so on and so forth. But listen, we need to bring in something. We need to bring in something to start pushing entertainment, pushing something that the people are going to, how can I say, enjoy for betterment of life. Okay. We have way too many parks. I'll tell you this right now. We have way too many parks and recreation centers that are not being used. Half of them are empty all the time. You have a couple of Zumba people running around. That's about it. And other than that, you have nobody running. And you look at them and you tell them, and they said, "Oh, we have all these classes. We have this. We have that." From where? Where are they? But regardless of that, the position that you're running for is a position that holds a different type of role, because it's a role that actually brings peace to Laredo. That's why it's called Justice of the Peace. Right. It settles disputes between businesses and clients, in families, neighbors, what have you. And there's a lot of other stuff that goes on with it that come into play. You magistrate individuals as well.
Right.
There's a lot of things that occur, that I think Webb County has changed that a little bit, which I think they have other magistrates and not the JPs, because they were being called on all the time. So they set aside some magistrates alone. But Laredo is a town where this is the first chance for a small business, or for somebody that got wronged by somebody else. You're the first line of defense for those civilians that come in. And that's what is needed. So I look at people that want to fulfill these positions as somebody that needs to be compassionate, has to have their head on the shoulder, and somebody
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
understands everything that's in there. And then after that, if they want to pursue it, but then there's other courts, so, they can appeal it to another court.
Right.
But other than that, you're running as a Republican. Tell
That's
us,
correct.
tell us, tell us, and you're running against several Democrats on that side. But tell us
That's right.
why you believe Laredo is now the chance to have Republicans. That's what I want to.
Well, I think if we look, Professor, at the numbers of votes casted for pro-Donald Trump during President Trump's first election, I think that that was the first indication that Laredo is ready for something new. Now, you know that we all know that Democrats have largely held a majority of power, judicial and otherwise, in Laredo for, let's say, easily the last 50 years, let's just say. Now, I think that when we saw the election turn in the favor of Trump, his first election, there was a lot of excitement in Laredo for the Republican Party. Now, keep in mind, this was a man who the media lambasted endlessly about being racist and wanting to divide and wanting to subject people to hate each other by hate speech or otherwise. Now, we all know that most of us who are in the political world don't view Donald Trump as a racist at all. In fact, we see him as a loudmouth, yes, a little bit insensitive, absolutely, but he's a New Yorker. He wasn't out necessarily to hurt people. He just speaks insensitively because that's how people from New York speak. Now, going back to the subject of Laredo, is that I have seen so many Laredoans become disenamored with the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party has offered nothing but raise taxes, more prices for basic services like water and electricity. And the Democrats' idea of growing the city is expanding governmental power and expanding the amount of money that the city generates at the expense of growing the city. Okay, now I know that many Laredoans are sick of this, and I think that we are ready for common sense laws that do not allow such power from the central government of Laredo. I think that Laredoans have had it with tax increases, had it with rates of water going up, services that are inadequate or are overly charged compared to other cities of similar size. I just think that Laredoans are ready to experience what the Republican Party has to offer, which is growth, okay, which is common sense, capitalistically based solutions. Okay, how do we pull people out of poverty, Professor? Well, we have to offer them a livable wage. How do we offer them a livable wage? Well, we have to offer them a job. You know that there has been a landlocked for jobs in Laredo. In Laredo, it seems like the only jobs that seem to grow are low-income jobs. But jobs that can sustain a whole family, a salaried position that can sustain a family, we see increasingly less of those. In fact, me as a teacher, I tried to find a job to teach in Laredo, and I was stunned to find, Professor, that this past school year, before it started, was the first year in my life that I saw that this school district in Laredo were actually not even hiring teachers anymore. They're actually not even hiring teachers because there's so few jobs that the teachers in Laredo don't leave their jobs. So there's actively no new teachers being hired. And I thought, well, it seems pretty clear to me that in terms of education, the industry tapped out. But if you think about other jobs, other opportunities for people to move up in the city, it's very hard. Most of us have to end up moving out or taking a risk at opening a business that might fail in order to possibly succeed. And I don't think that this is right. I think that we need to lower taxes. Lower taxes will bring more business because people will be able to save more money. They'll be able to invest in their communities. I think that Laredoans are desperately ready for change. We need to get rid of the system that has not worked Professor. We need to instill Republican values in the city of Laredo. And I think that the people are ready. And Donald Trump's first presidential campaign was the proof that we all saw about everybody joining together, Hispanics coming together for a Republican who didn't sound like any other Republican before. I don't know if you know this, but Donald Trump actually got 1 million more Hispanic votes than did Mitt Romney when he ran. So this whole idea of Donald Trump being a racist and the Republican Party being out to hurt Democrats, or sorry, being out to hurt people, it's just not true. It's just not true. We see, in fact, we're seeing right now, the states that rebounded the best from the COVID lockdown pandemic are the red states. The red states. You look at Florida. Florida's doing great. You look at well, Texas. How many companies have you seen now are moving their headquarters to Texas? Tesla just moved their headquarters to Texas. Many other gun manufacturers also moving their
you have Chef Gordon Ramsay's moving his headquarters to Texas.
Gordon Ramsay. Yeah, we had it. I've lost count. It's just so many. I think that we are ready, and when you start to see all these businesses just gravitating, pulling towards all these, I want to call them the free states, the red states. They are free for business. They're open for business. They are open for investment. I think that I really think that we are ready, and I think we can make it happen.
Yeah. Number one, we're running out of time. What would you like to tell your constituents out there?
Well, I'd like to say that I'm extremely excited to be able to run as a Republican. I have always had a dream of running as a Republican, and I'm finally making that dream come true. So if you are as motivated as me to kick out the old and to take in the new and to embrace change and embrace something different, then vote for me, because I will not disappoint you. I am here to serve my community in the same way that my community has served me. My community taught me the meaning of hard work. Laredo taught me the meaning of respect and family, and what it means to struggle to survive, and what it means to also to succeed, okay? Because there is opportunity for those who want to work hard in Laredo. So my community has taught me a lot of things, and it's given me a lot. It's given me so much that I will never be able to give back what my upbringing in Laredo has given me. And I want to help now build up the next generation of young people who are coming into their adult lives without the same opportunities that maybe we had just a few years ago. You know, and I want to fight for you. I want to advocate for you. And I want you to know that I'm with you. I'm a people person. I will meet anyone. I would love to get to know any one of you. And if there's any questions that you have for me, I will be making a political page to advertise my campaign. So be on the lookout for that.
Okay, that's great. That's well. And it's a pleasure to hear from you. It's good that you all are sound and safe.
Thank you.
And folks, we'll leave you with this one. Research every candidate. Pay attention to what's going out there. Pay attention to your community. See what it needs, and exercise your right to vote. Number one, exercise your right to vote. You do not know how important it is to exercise your right to vote nowadays. Until then, I'm going to leave you with this. You all stay safe. Be safe. Till next time. Much peace.